All right, we're at it again, guys. We're here. We're ready to go. It's the evening. It's dark. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm ready for a nap, but we're doing it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Weekly Daily Podcast. It's been a busy week. Happy New Year. This is coming out on the new year, I believe. Happy 2025, guys. It's going to be a big year with lots of goals and lots of things. I didn't write this down, but maybe I'll jot down here to talk about, I'll do it right here, goals. Talk about my goals at the end of this. But no, thanks for tuning in. It's been a busy week. Like I said, hope you guys had a good Christmas holiday season. I had a good time. It was an eventful. It was one of those. It was like eventful, but also not eventful, in the sense that I flew to the East Coast, saw my family. But, did stuff there, but also kind of just sat around. Do you guys do that when you go see your family? You do all this traveling, you go around, and then you just sit on the couch together all day. That's pretty much what I did, which was good. It was good. I always feel like every time I go home, and it's probably due to the fact that I sit on the couch all day, but I'm always so tired. I go home and do nothing for a couple days, and doing nothing makes me so tired. I wonder, how do I accomplish anything? How do I have a job and do comedy in the evenings and fit in exercise and cook food? I just lay there and I'm like, man, what a day. What a day it's been. But it's good. It's good to wear these headphones. I'll be honest with you guys. These glasses have been really peeving me. They've really been POing me. You guys remember that middle school slang? I'm PO'd, dude. I'm so PO'd. What were the other middle school slang things? I think screwed up. Or no, I don't give a care. I don't give a care. That was a funny one. It's funny because those are just the ones that you learn when you're that age. You're like, this is what people say. And then you get older and you're like, oh, this is the replacement clean middle school version of what people actually say as adults. They don't say, I don't give a care. Could you imagine that? As an adult, getting into an altercation with somebody and you're trying to act tough. You're like, I don't give a care. You'd get beat up on the spot. That's what would happen. But yeah, let's talk about Christmas, guys. The trip was kind of wild, honestly. I think the last time I recorded, I mentioned that it was the evening before. I was taking a flight the next morning, a super early flight. I recorded the last podcast, I think, Saturday night, and I was flying out Sunday morning. And my flight was at 6 a.m., so I was like, I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to pull an all-nighter. I'll just sleep on the plane. That makes the most sense. And let me tell you what, about midway through staying up all night, I was like, why in the world did I think that this made sense? It's one of those where you I don't know, this happens pretty often actually, where I think something through in my head and I go, look, I've done the math. I've thought through all the options. This plan makes the most sense. And then when you actually go forward with that plan, you think through it and you're like, literally every other option makes more sense than this. I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, basically I had a show that night and then I had to be at the airport at 4 a.m. So, and the airport's 40 minutes away. And I think initially what my thought process is I had a show. I was going to be getting back late. I wasn't going to be arriving to my destination the next day until 3 p.m. So I wouldn't be able to eat all day because you know me. I have that weird diet and airports don't have gluten-free crackers, if you know what I'm saying. They don't really have food that I can eat all that often. So I was getting back late from the show. My plan was to eat And then I didn't want to go straight to bed because I was going to eat like a big meal to hold me over for the next, I don't know, 14 hours or whatever. And then my plan, I think, was to take an Uber to Union Station. So take it to downtown, and then there's a train from downtown to the airport. And I was like, I'll do that because that'll save me $20. And it'll save me $20, but it'll also just like double the length of the trip time wise. So then I'm like, there's no time to sleep in there. I'm just going to stay up all night. Well, then, I get back, I eat. It's like 11 p.m. And I'm like, okay, I'm tired and I don't want to Uber to downtown and then take a train. I'm just going to Uber to the airport. I don't need to save $20. I don't want to go through that hassle. I'm tired. I'm not spending an hour and a half going through the logistics of just getting to the airport. So then I'm like, okay, well, let me play video games for a little while, try to keep me up. And I mean, dude, I did not feel good. And it's one of those things where, like, before we even hit midnight, I was like, I've made a terrible mistake. And this is about to be a nightmare. But, I'd already started with the mistake, so I had to finish it out. I stayed up. Actually, if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I stayed up till about 2:15, and then I took like a 30-minute nap till like 2:45, 2:50. Woke up, and then I called for the Uber. The Uber got there like just after 3. Got to the airport like 3:45 for a 6 a.m. flight. So I was there super early, but I'm glad I got there early. Because sometimes for these early flights, it's like, dude, I'm going to just get there an hour early. Usually it's not a big deal to get through security and everything. And I can sleep in a little bit more. But this time I was like, I just got to get to the airport. Otherwise I'm going to fall asleep and just miss my flight. But I got there. So I got there at like 3:45. And dude, it was the longest line for TSA I've ever seen in Denver. Like, it was crazy. It was so many wraparounds that people, like, the line continued beyond where they have the little rows for you to stay in, or whatever they call the little zigzag spots. The rows. The line. I don't know what I'm saying. The line extended beyond where they had a corridor for you to walk through. Basically, like, all the way around to where you check bags and like get tickets from the front counter. So I was like, oh my gosh, dude, I might still miss my flight. Fortunately, I think that was probably just because it was like Christmas travel, I guess. I flew out on the 22nd, so it wasn't like, I don't know what day is the busiest, but they just had that security line open, and as I was in line, which this always happens, but I'm in line, and I go from like not being in a corridor type line where it's like outside of the zigzag area, and I finally get into the roped up corridor area. And so there's there's probably 100+ yards of line behind me. And then some guy comes down and he goes, hey, we just opened up the west security. You guys can go there. There's nobody there. So everybody runs that way. But I was like at the tail end of the people that stayed. So I was like, ugh, gosh, I just missed it. Whatever. I'm committing to this line, so I don't have to stress about it. Fortunately, it didn't. It took probably like 45 minutes to get through security, which is probably about the longest I've ever waited, but I still had plenty of time to get to the terminal and sit there for, another 45 minutes before boarding started. But it was actually kind of funny. Excuse me. It was kind of funny because I got to the terminal and it's like 4:30 in the morning. And I sit there, I'm just sitting there just like half dead. I mean, I hate myself. I'm so tired. I'm like, this was so stupid of me to not sleep. I'm literally so tired. I like set an alarm to make sure I don't miss boarding the flight. Because I'm like, I don't know. Everybody might board and I might just like be asleep in this chair and miss my flight. But I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I hear somebody like starts talking. And I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm super tired. I'm just in my own head thinking about all the mistakes I've made in my life ever. And this guy says the same thing again. And, I'm not looking around. I assume he's talking to somebody else. And then he says it a third time. He's like, hey, I'm talking to you. And I look up and he goes, hey, I saw you host a show a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, cool. Where at? And he says, oh, I saw you at a Don't Tell show. Host this show at a brewery. I was like, oh, that's cool. Awesome. And then that was kind of it. That was like, he was just like, hey, I saw you at this place. He didn't say, hey, I liked you. Hey, you were very funny. He was like, hey, I saw you at this location a couple weeks ago. And I was like, all right, confirmed. That was me. Thanks for telling me. Which, look, I'm being a little sarcastic. I mean, that is what he said, but on one side of the coin, I was like flattered because I don't get recognized, very often. But when somebody recognizes me in public and mentions that they saw me do comedy or that they enjoy my comedy, which, if I'm being honest, has probably happened, I don't know, half a dozen times, once a year for every year I've done comedy. So it's not an often thing, but like that was flattering. But on the other side of the coin, it was 4:30 in the morning. I hadn't slept, and I was like, "Yo, dude, don't talk to me." I was like, "I have not slept. These are not talking hours. These are not conversation hours." Okay, you know how they have hours of business, like 8 to 5 business hours. They should have conversation hours. Hours of conversation. You go, hey man, if it's not within these hours, don't look at me. Okay? I don't want to hear it. I was like, it's 4:30 in the morning, dude. You can't speak to me until 7 a.m. All right? Unless you're collecting my ticket or, need to tell me something urgent, aka like an employee at the airport. No random conversations. Okay? You write a little note and you slip it to me. I'll read it later. Once it hits 7 a.m. and my actual wake up alarm goes off, I'll give it a read. And then I'll find you on the plane. I'll give you a wave. I'll go, hey, appreciate you, buddy. But that is funny because it's like, you see people who are famous and getting bombarded all the time. And you're like, dude, sometimes they'll be like crappy to their fans. And it's like, yeah, dude, but you're famous. Just like smile to the people. Like it can be easy to think that way. Like, man, why are they so nasty to some of their fans sometimes? But then it's like, okay, nobody knows who I am. And the second somebody recognizes me, I'm like, how dare you speak to me? How dare you look at me, man? That's not fair of you to do that to me. Which, I mean, I'm being hyperbolic here. I was kind of the guy. I genuinely appreciated him saying, hey, I recognize you from a show. That was cool. But also just inside baseball, inside my head, I was like, yo, this is way too early to be talking. But that was a funny little interaction. And then it was kind of funny because I had a connecting flight from Denver, or I had a layover from Denver to Dulles in Northern Virginia, and then from Dulles to Roanoke, which was my parents picked me up. Roanoke's about an hour away from my parents' house. And Roanoke is like not a big city. It's, I don't know, probably 80,000 people, 100,000 people maybe in the city. Like it's a small airport. There's no direct long flights to Roanoke. It's a small little airport where we had, I don't know, it's one of those planes where there's like you have the little walkway, and on one side it's one seat and on the other side it's two seats. So I don't know, whatever that comes out to, 50, 60 seats total in the on the plane. But I took a seat and I'm like getting ready to just try to sleep. And the guys in front of me, the guy directly in front of me, he was one of those chatters. It's like super early in the morning, but he's like, tell me everything about you. Fortunately, not to me. It was to the person beside him. And it was kind of funny because he was talking to the guy beside him, asking him what he does, all this and that. And the guy beside him was a comic in New York City. And so it was funny to hear. It was kind of funny to be like, oh, we're going to a very small town or small city in Virginia, and there's a comic sitting beside me. That's kind of an interesting thing. But it was also funny to see and hear, kind of eavesdrop a little bit on the conversation, because it was such a typical conversation of somebody who doesn't know anything about comedy, but just asks all the general mundane questions about comedy. Just like, oh my goodness, what is that like? How much money do you make? What's your Instagram? Like, just all the boring questions where you're like, again, you're kind of like flattered, but then you're just like, okay, like this conversation isn't engaging for me. You asking me like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like how that would compare to like if you're a doctor and someone's like, oh my goodness, wow, that's crazy. So you have patience? Oh wow, dude, like you see like 10 people a day? That's crazy. What do you say to them? They they sit in the waiting room and then, oh wow. Yeah, I've seen that. You have like a stethoscope, like you put that on people's backs and make them breathe. Wow. Like what does that feel like? Just stuff where you're like, what are you asking me? This is very odd. That was a terrible comparison, by the way. Like I said, it's in the evening, and you guys know me. Most of the time I do these in the morning, and my analogies are very bad at that point. So just, you guys are getting a little taste of what my brain is like in the evening, okay? And it ain't good. Maybe this tea will help it. But the funniest part about that interaction is once we landed, the guy asking all the questions, he had asked for the comics Instagram handle, and literally we land. We're like on the tarmac. We're waiting to deboard, and he's watching this guy's reels on Instagram. And not only is he watching them, he's watching them full blast on speaker. So literally the whole plane is just like listening to this guy's stand up and podcast clips. And I was like, yo, this is the cringiest thing ever. And the comic, I mean, I assume he was annoyed, but he was playing it off like a champ. He's kind of like giggling along to it. He's like, yeah, I love comedy. It's, I'm just being goofy. But it's like, dude, turn your phone off. You watch that later. How dare you? That is the funny thing about like what we're doing as comics, is trying to get attention, and like we want people to hear us and to, enjoy what we're saying and relate to it. But if somebody's like, hey, let me watch your clip in front of you, and then the whole plane can hear it, it's like, what are you doing? Shut that off. Okay? That's crazy that you would do that. I just thought that was pretty funny that happened. But yeah, got into Roanoke, did not sleep that night. So I was kind of, honestly, it kind of, I think, put me in a weird mental space the whole trip, because I was just kind of off kilter. But that first day, yeah, I got some coffee and kind of kept it together for the first day, but hung out at my parents for a couple of days, and then went up to my sister's place for the last couple of days while I was in town. It was good to see the family, the nieces and nephews. They're all wild. It is, the unfortunate part about living in a different state and kind of across the country a little bit is not being able to see them all that often, like once or twice a year. But it is pretty crazy how kids, this isn't new revelation, but kids grow fast. And so it is like, whoa, last time I saw you were not talking and you hated me. And now you're talking a lot and you want to show me all your toys. That's all right. You've changed quite a bit. That was my niece. My niece was very much scared of everybody, was latched on her mother at all times, and was scared if anybody else wanted to hold her or play with her or do anything. But now she was very excited to play with everybody and to tell everybody everything she went through her mind. She got an ice cream like it was like a little ice cream stand where you could, you had a little cone and cup, and you could put different flavors on there and different toppings. It's all, plastic or whatever, but pretend ice cream stand. And for hours, I was just sitting there on the couch, and she's like, "What flavor do you want?" Actually, it was her and one of my nephews. They were both playing with it, and it is funny looking at toys that you're like, man, I did not think that that would be such a hit. Which, dude, it's funny because as an adult, I see adults sometimes who like don't relate with kids at all, and they'll be kind of crappy towards kids and be like, "Oh, they're being bad or this or that." And it's like, do you not remember being a kid? Like kids will do kids things. Like cut them a break. Like they're not. This isn't a sales office where you're like, "Hey, why are you not in a suit and tie, toddler? What are you doing?" Some people like forget what it's like to be a kid. It feels like, but I'll be honest. Sometimes I'll find myself now being like, "What? Kids? That toy? That kind of toy is interesting to a child?" But they loved it, man. They were serving too much ice cream. If I'm being honest, it was one of those things where they'd be like, "What flavor do you want?" And I tell them a flavor, and they go, "What topping do you want?" And I tell them a topping, and then they give me the ice cream, and I'd hold it for, I don't know, 4 seconds, and they go, "Are you finished?" And I go, "Yeah, it was delicious." And they go, "Let me get you another one. What flavor do you want?" And I go, "You know what? Give me a mint chocolate chip with some strawberry toppings." Just given the most random, terrible combination. And then, an hour and a half later, they're like, "What flavor do you want?" And you're like, "You know what? My stomach hurts. I think I've had too much sugar. I think I'm going to have to take a break from the ice cream scoops." But it was good. It was good seeing the family, catching up with everybody. I had an interesting. So I took an Uber to the airport, and then I took an Uber back when I flew in. And when I got back, wow, I just looked. I talked about what did I even talk about for 20 minutes? Talked about my trip back home. But yeah, anyways, the Uber ride back, I get back into Denver, and I've already spent like a ton of money on the flight and the Ubers and everything. So I'm like, let me get a shared Uber. I don't want to spend $60. So the shared Uber was like $36 or something like that. And I figured that it would take us to, the person that also got in would be in a similar place. Not the case, okay? The guy that gets in, he lives in Arvada. We go to Arvada first, and then we go to my place. And just for context, it was probably about, I don't know, 35 to 40 minutes to get from the airport to Arvada. And from Arvada to my place, it was like another 30 minutes. And that was obnoxious, but what was even more obnoxious was the fact that the Uber driver kept complaining to me about it. He was like, "You don't live in Arvada too? This is bull crap." And I was like, "Yeah, that's crazy, dude. I thought we'd be closer." And he's like, "How much are you paying for this trip?" And I was like, "Yeah, don't ask me that. That's confidential." So I told him a number that was like way higher than the actual number. And he was like, "Duh, I'm not even going to get paid for this trip, dude. I better get tips. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to pay for gas." And I'm like, "Yo, dude, if there's one thing I hate, it's when, whether it's a taxi or whatever situation you're in, when somebody like kind of in a threatening way mentions like, 'I better get a good tip. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to blah, blah, blah.'" It's like, yo, dude, do you think I created the app and put in the algorithm? Hey, why don't you put me and this guy together and we don't live close? Like, I was like, I'm upset about it too, but don't like shut up. It was actually bothering me because also it's like, dude, I got up at 4 a.m. Got up at 4 a.m., flew a long way to get here. I'm running on a little bit of sleep. I hop in this Uber. It's 30 plus minutes longer than I thought it was going to be. And I'm just trying to get home, man. I'm just trying to get home and have a coffee, go to the bathroom, take a shower. And now you want me to be like, "Yeah, man, this thing is so stupid that involves me, by the way. Yeah, I'm really mad that I decided to do this thing that pays you money." I was like, dude, I get it. It's annoying, but like people that kind of get crappy like that when it kind of implicates you in the situation. She's like, dude, shut up. Mute. Also, it's like if you want to tip, threatening me to tip is not that doesn't really make me want to tip. I did give him a little tip, but also the whole tipping thing is another thing that I'll save for a different podcast. I'm sure I've talked about it in the past, but it's like, how much money do I got to give, you know? I spent $150 on Ubers and taxis over that trip. Anyways, it's good being home. I'll tell you what, I watched a couple good movies while I was home, which it's been a minute, but I saw The Truman Show. YouTube now has movies with commercials. I saw The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's about, I mean, if you haven't seen it at this point, it's 30 years old probably, but it's basically about this guy that does not know he's in like a reality TV show. Everybody else does, and cameras are on him 24/7, just streaming his life. And he eventually finds out about it, and it's a very good movie. I guess I don't really have much more to say other than it's been a minute since I've seen that movie, and it's good to see it again. But I also saw Top Gun, I think Top Gun Maverick, the second Top Gun, whatever that one's called. And you know what? I'll be honest. It's one of those movies. I did the same thing with the first movie. I didn't watch the first Top Gun until maybe a couple years ago. And just the music, what's that? The theme song music. I'm blanking on the name, but just it always sounded and seemed kind of corny to me. But when I watched it, I was like, you know what? This is pretty good. And then same thing with the second one. It's like, dude, I didn't watch it in the theaters. I didn't have much interest in it. And I watched it, and I was like, you know what? This is a good film. This is just a good, fun movie. Which, honestly, to be fair, I don't even know why I said to be fair, but just to be honest, I feel kind of the same about Mission Impossible movies. Like, they put one out like every 2 years, it feels like. But it's like, but they're pretty good movies. They're just a fun watch. It's not a movie that you're like, that changed my life. But you're like, that was just a fun movie. I liked it. But I got home on Friday morning, had a show on Friday and Saturday. It was a pretty busy week, actually. It was a busy week with travel, but a busy weekend with shows. Had a Don't Tell on Friday that was pretty fun. It was a sold-out show at this kind of speakeasy place, which they have kind of this back. It's in a mall, which you think like, oh, in a mall, it's going to be weird. But you get in there, and it's actually a very cool little speakeasy space, and they're actually creating like a new space within the business that they're going to be moving the shows to, which is even cooler. So I'm excited for that moving forward. But it was sold out. There's like 65, 70 people there. And it was a good crowd. They were having a good time. They were there to laugh. I will say I was I think from lack of sleep and travel, I was like all over the place. I was like, dude, I feel a little whacked out, which is funny. I mean, I host all the time, so it's like you get used to it. But sometimes when you're like on the edge of just your human capacity, you're like, man, I feel like I'm one heckler away from melting on stage. Like if one person shouts out, I might just, go up in flames and totally lose it. Fortunately, that didn't happen. I kept it together, and it was a fun show. But looking forward to that show moving forward. They're going to be doing it in that new space, which will hold more people, and it's kind of like what's a good way to describe it without like fully giving it away? It's kind of, so it's a bar that serves food, and by bar, it's more of like a cocktail bar or speakeasy. But it also combines like an art experience. So it's like kind of a multi-leveled business. And so they have rooms that are like almost like a Meow Wolf, but like on a smaller scale. So like this kind of just art walkthrough, visual stimulating thing. And then there's this other room that's the new room that I'm talking about. That's like an entertainment venue where they have a stage and the walls are painted like it's very much like a forest theme. So they have like a bunch of trees and then things hanging from the ceiling that kind of look like stars and just a really cool vibe. So I'm looking forward to doing shows there in the future. But the room they do it in now is very fun too. It's kind of like more of a speakeasy space that we've been doing it in. But what did I do on Saturday? I've been running a lot recently, and I got a little sore throat from my sister and her family. They had some stuff while I visited. I think I may have gotten from them. I'm not fully sick, but just a little stuff going on. I feel like this whole month of December I've been a little off, but I've been running almost every day and feeling okay. So you take the good with the bad with the good, whatever people say. I'm doing all right. Y'all come back now. My parents' house. This is a random tangent, but my parents' house above the toilet. My mom has a little banner that says "Y'all come back now." And every time I visit there, I I tell myself I'm gonna do an Instagram story where I just record the banner and then I flip the camera back to myself and then I just say it. So I just show the banner that says "Y'all come back now," and then I flip the camera on myself and I just go, "Y'all come back now." And I just think that that's a funny, silly goof. I think that might be something that's kind of funny. And every time I go home, I go, nah, I'm just not feeling like it now. I just don't feel like doing it. Honestly, what it is like when you're talking out loud and your parents are in the house, and if you're just like in the corner of the house and they hear you go, "Y'all come back now." It's like I just don't want to deal with them going, "What are you doing?" And me just go, I'm just trying to get a couple likes on the gram, trying to get a couple extra followers. I'm almost at 1,200. I'm pretty much a big deal. I'm pretty close to being famous. That's my go-to joke whenever I'm headlining and I pitch my Instagram handle. I go, "Guys, if you want to follow me on Instagram, yeah, I'm getting close to 100,000 followers. I only need like 99,000 more. So if you could follow me, that would help out quite a bit." And that usually gets a giggle. That's a little easy joke. It's not even really. I don't know if I've heard it before, but I'm sure it's been said a million times before. It's not really an original joke, but okay, it's just a little trick. Whenever you're pitching stuff like merch or Instagram, socials, or podcast stuff, it's like, dude, I gotta say some sort of joke. If I just come up here and I'm like, "Hey guys, follow my Instagram, watch my podcast, buy my koozies," and I don't have any jokes, it's like, dude, you're a psycho. But Saturday, yeah, went for a run. I think most of the weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, was just kind of like trying to recalibrate, getting back into town. And but Saturday was good. Went for a run, and then I did a couple shows on Saturday, which I didn't have any shows scheduled until I think I got a good friend of the pod, buddy, fellow comedian Ethan Everhart. He runs a show in Highlands Ranch, which is like southwest of Denver, about like 30 minutes or so. And it's at a brewery, Max Taps Brewery. And dude, let me tell you what, great show. Well done, Ethan. Genuinely it's a great show. I've done it twice now, and it's in a brewery that has a separate space. Which, if you're looking to do comedy in a brewery and they have a separate space, if they have a separate space in a brewery, that's always a huge bonus. And dude, they were just, oh man, they were great. It was completely packed out, like packed out. Every seat was taken. The space probably holds, I'm guessing, but 40 to 50 is probably kind of max capacity. But not only was it full, but the crowd was hot. They were ready to go. And it was Ethan hosting, and then 3 comics, including myself. And all of us did about 20 minutes. So I got to stretch my legs a little bit. The first comic, she was actually a comic from Berlin. Well, she was from Denver area. She was visiting her family for the holidays, I think, but she does comedy full time in Berlin. She said. She said that there was like 80 plus shows a week in Berlin. And look, maybe that's true. I'll be honest with you guys. I was talking to Ethan at a certain point in the night, and I said, I don't believe it. 80 shows a week in a European city for English stand-up? Look, I don't know if she did clarify, but I think the assumption was that it was English comedy. Comedy in English, not just like, hey, any kind of mic that includes German or other languages. But she said that she was full-time comedy there. And she said her and like 20 other comics are full-time comedians in Berlin. She said it was very easy to travel across Europe and to get to London, just cheap flights and a lot of comedy scenes, I guess, in like from Barcelona to Vienna to a bunch of different places. So that was very cool to see. But whenever, I don't know that I've ever really I certainly haven't met anybody who's been like a full-time comedian in Europe. But I've hardly met many people that are just like, I'm based out of, a European city doing open mics. Like, I don't know that I've really seen that. So I was curious to be like, what's this going to look like? Because, I mean, to be fair to her, not that I'm like trying to be super judgmental, but when your crowd is primarily not native English speakers, then it's like, I feel like you develop your act very differently than you would. I don't know. I was just like, it's probably going to be a different form of comedy. And she also mentioned that she moved out to Berlin to pursue, to be an opera singer. And so I only watched a little bit of her set, but her set was basically, she sang a lot of opera and intermingled that with comedy, with jokes. And I mean, she did well. I will say I had a hard time listening to the jokes and just like taking in the jokes because I found myself being a little bit triggered given that I've had an opera singer as a roommate in my past life. And I'll tell you what, I've probably talked about it on here before, was not a fan of that. Was not a fan of opera. Look, nothing against this lady. This comic was very nice. She was doing very well on stage. But from my point of view, you should not be allowed to sing opera unless you are on a theater stage. Singing opera in a small room, it's just like, yo, this hurts my head. I don't want to hear it. It's too loud. And also when you sing opera, it's like, dude, it's such a pretentious way of singing. It's like, yo, you're going to go like 12 octaves high and you're going to do vibrato and you're going to do it in a different language. You're like, how much better than me do you think you are? Okay. I can speak Spanish. I'm not singing it with vibrato. I'm just joking. Nobody listens to this pod anyway, so I'm sure she's not going to listen to it. She was very nice. Again, it was just triggering me from my past roommate who was an opera singer who I did not get along with. So, anyways, that was a very fun show. I did about 20 minutes, and I went after her, and I played on the fact that she was an opera singer a little bit. I went up there, and I was like, hey, guys, sorry to tell you, I just got jokes. I'm not going to be singing up here. It's always hard to follow an artist who has an actual skill set. You just come up here and tell some little jokes about how I feel. And then I told him, I was like, look, if I do start singing, then you guys know that I'm bombing so hard that I'm just swinging for the fences. But did about 20 minutes, and dude, they were so hot. They were such a good crowd. It was funny though, because I did like the first I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes, and was like doing very well. And then I did like a transition with some new jokes and just talked about like my feelings a little bit, and they did not like that. It's not that they even like hated it. It's just like they were like, "Hey, we liked when you were telling jokes, and now you got a little like weird on us, and we don't like that." And I was like, "You know what? Touche. That's fair." So then I had to bring it back up, but it is funny sometimes when a crowd is so hot and you're like, "Dude, I can say anything and they're going to laugh." And then you're like, "Oh no. They're a very hot room, but they're also honest. And if you say something that's not funny, they'll be like, "Okay, we're not going to laugh at that. We'll laugh really hard at the actual jokes you say, but like we don't like it when you get too sad on us. Try to get too real, dude." I was like, "You guys want to hear real world stuff? Real world road rules. MTV." But then from there, that was a fun time. From there, went to the Denver Comedy Lounge, and that's a venue that's in downtown Denver. They do Friday, Saturday shows. On Saturday, they do like a 6, 8, and 10 p.m. So I went up there and was able to hop on and do a guest spot on the, or just do a regular spot on the 10 p.m. show, which was super fun. It was a pretty tight crowd. It was maybe like, I don't know, 30-ish people, 30 to 40. And they were a very tight crowd. But I will say I felt good. I felt comfortable in it. It's sometimes when you just see a really tight crowd and you have a couple comics that go before you and you're able to just be like, "Oh, this is what it is. I'm going to go have fun. I'm not like, I'm going to just do the best that I can. And I'm not going to worry about, hey, they're not laughing that hard. I need to spiral in my head." I was just like, whatever, I'll have fun. And I did have fun. I enjoyed it. But it was good to get 2 sets in. It's been, with all the hosting that I'm doing, getting 2 sets in on a weekend. I mean, I don't even know the last time that I did that. But I will say it was kind of funny because the crowd was kind of tight, and I mean I felt fine about it, but it was like a whatever set with the crowd being tight. And I get off stage, and there's a gentleman that like puts his arm out and he goes, "Hey man, I really like the food allergy joke you do." I did I did a joke about having food allergies, and he goes, "I Same thing for me, man." And he like puts his hand out to dap me up, puts his fist out, but it's a dark room, so I couldn't see if it was a fist or if it was a handshake. So I went for the handshake. And then he changed to go to the handshake, and I changed to the fist. And we did that a couple times, and I walked out of that room and I said, I should probably just go home and, you know, quit comedy. Never look a human being in the eyes again. Ooh, that was painful. Nothing worse than having a mediocre set and then having just the most awkward interaction afterwards. You're like, "Yo, dude, if I do something weird one more time, I'm going to spontaneously explode and just disappear from the universe." But that, I mean, I say that jokingly. It's actually funny. It's very awkward, but like after the fact, you're like, "Dude, that's hilarious." I just did like so average on stage, and then someone tries to give a compliment, and I just blow it. The one person who was like, "I kind of enjoyed your set," and I'm like, "Yo, dude, do you want to like awkwardly make shapes with our hands beside each other?" But it's good. I got some new jokes cooking in the works right now. I think I'm gonna try to make that thing that I was talking about earlier with the guy trying to talk to me early in the morning at like 4:30 a.m. I might try to make a joke about that, where it's like, "Hey, don't talk to me when it's that early." I know that's not like a novel idea. It's not like a new thought. It's probably been talked about before, but given that I had the experience, I might try to expand on that a little bit. I've also got some stories that I'm trying to work on. Um, some stories from the college days, and I need to go through. I've been writing so much stuff, writing about my time in Nicaragua, uh, writing about my nephew getting bit by a penguin at the zoo, writing about just a bunch of stuff. I need to really get organized and go through and go, hey, what are the one or two things that you want to work on over the next week or two? I feel like I've been writing a bunch, but not like concentrating on one or two things. So then now I just have like, hey, I've got a dozen ideas floating around out there. And then I'm not like taking any of them, giving any of them the time they need to like blossom like a flower, like the flower that all my jokes are, right? Not all your jokes can be flowers, okay? What's the opposite of blossom? Some jokes don't blossom, they do the opposite. They drop off the edge of the earth. Um yeah, but working on some of that stuff. I'll keep you guys updated on how that goes. I'm excited, and I tell you what, I need to get some new jokes cooking because boy, it's been slow moving. I've talked about it, but I feel like I'm getting close, and just need to put in the effort, going to some of these open mics, working through them. 2025 goals, guys. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of time left in this episode, and I've written down, but I don't have it in front of me, and I need to write down more. But some goals that I have for this year, some definite goals, and then I'll go on some maybes because I don't have everything written down or fully thought through yet. But probably the biggest goal of 2025, comedy-wise, these are all comedy goals. Personal goals are just going to be, the same as always. Be as healthy as possible. Continue to exercise, eat well, sleep well, and just try to be a better person every day. Treat people nice, just be a good person. But comedy goals specifically, biggest one this year is 2025. I want to record an album and a, quote unquote special. I want to record a video recording of 30 plus minutes of me doing stand up to be able to release video, but also cut the audio, shop that around, hopefully get it on a label, and be able to be released on a label. Hopefully, have some of those tracks be able to go to Sirius and get some sort of revenue from that, some passive income. That's the biggest goal. So, what do I need to do? Essentially, I've got the material. I'd like to just fine tune some stuff and maybe add some jokes so I can record maybe like 40-ish, 40, if not more minutes, to then be able to cut down to have an album that's at least 30 minutes long. So writing some jokes, fine tuning some jokes, but we're almost there. But main thing is just setting a date and time and venue and doing all the logistics of working with videographers or whoever that is to be like, okay, here's all the pieces put together, here's a date, and then start working towards that date and making it happen. So that's kind of the main goals kind of for this year. Other goals, I would love to feature at a club, if not feature at multiple clubs. Love to headline at a club, and I think there's some small clubs that I'd be able to do that. Would love to headline more locally, especially for smaller shows. Just maybe like newer comics or newer shows that maybe aren't incredible shows, but still have a headliner. I think that's just how you learn to headline and get better at headlining, getting opportunities in those spaces. I would love to do at least a couple festivals. Part of that, I think, will involve me getting a new tape. So get a new solid tape of updated material, an updated me, a 2025 version of myself. And then there's a bunch of other stuff, just like routines and habits as far as like emailing bookers and clubs consistently once a month, if not more, to pass my dates along to try to eventually get opportunities that way. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more, but those are kind of the main ones. If you guys, have goals of your own, would love to hear about it. Leave a comment on the YouTubes or the Spotify. Would love to hear what your goals are, whether that's exercise, getting in the gym, whether it's comedy related. Maybe it's nothing to do with comedy. Maybe it's golf. Hopefully it's golf. I don't know if anybody listening to this plays golf, but maybe it's to break 80. That's a fun goal. But yeah, let me know what your goals are for 2025. Would love to hear what you guys got cooking for the new year. But with that said, I'm going to end the podcast there. Appreciate you guys tuning in this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a good new year, and I'll see you guys again in the next episode.